Let's face it, your parents don't always get it right. And sorry, mom and dad, you don't either. And yes, I said it, all right? When it comes to finances, some of the advice you grew up hearing or still might hear till this day just does not cut it in today's world. Today, we're going to be busting popular money myths that might be holding you back from reaching your full financial potential. Today, we're here to challenge everything you thought you knew about money. We're going to be diving deep into some of the most persistent financial myths that I hear that have been passed down like family heirlooms, only these gems per se might be costing you way more than you actually realize. You've probably heard your parents say things like buy a house as soon as you can or stick to a safe traditional job. But in a world where side hustles, digital nomads, crypto investments, it's time to ask, is this advice still really relevant or is it just holding me or you back? Stick with us and we'll break down these old school ideas, and by the end of this episode, you just might find yourself questioning whether your parents always had it right after all. So let's get into it. A quick note before we dive in. For all the details we mentioned in this episode, head over to the show notes at pricelesstay.com/14. That's the number 14. And if you have any questions about money or just want to share something with us, visit pricelesstay.com/askpricelesstay to leave us a voice memo for a chance to be featured in the show. Let's start with one of the biggest financial myths out there. You need to buy a home as soon as possible. This is a classic piece of advice many of us hear from our parents, often with the reasoning that renting is just throwing away money and that owning a home is the ultimate sign of financial success because that was the American dream. But here's the thing. While buying a home can be a great investment for some, it's not always the best choice for everybody, and certainly not something you should rush into. And I will be the first to raise my hand that I've bought in a home before and it's now sold. Maybe it wasn't the best choice back then. However, it suited my needs and a lot of stuff happened, but I definitely rushed into this idea of becoming a homeowner. So this idea that you need to buy a home as soon as you can is based on the assumption that property values will always go up and that homeownership is a one-way ticket to financial security. But let's break it down because first, homeownership comes with a lot of hidden costs. Property taxes to name one, maintenance, insurance, and interest on the mortgage, just to name a few, PMI if you can't afford the 20% down and you're going to your first home ownership mortgage, FHA loan, just to name a few. And according to a report by Zillow, the average homeowner spends over $9,000 a year on hidden home ownership costs. These can add up quickly and make owning a home much more expensive than it seems on the surface. The real estate market isn't always a safe bet. We've seen housing bubbles burst before, like in 2008, and buying a home in the wrong market at the wrong time can lead to financial disaster. In fact, home prices in some areas have become so inflated that many experts are warning of potential market corrections in the near future. So what if your life circumstances change? Maybe you need to move for a job or you got laid off or some sort of family reason. Selling a home can take time. It isn't guaranteed to be profitable, especially after accounting for closing costs and real estate agent fees, which in my opinion, isn't really talked enough about. So for instance, millennials are increasingly delaying home ownership, with many choosing to rent for longer periods. In fact, I'm pulling up a survey here. A recent survey by Apartment List found that 18% of millennials expect to rent forever, a number that's likely to grow for us Gen Zers as well. So while home ownership can be part of a smart financial strategy, it's not something to rush into just because it's what's expected. Sometimes renting and investing your money elsewhere might be the better financial move. And again, this is coming from somebody who literally lived that path. Next, we're gonna go deep into big money myths that need debunking. Next up, let's talk about the idea that getting a traditional job offers more stability. I'm sure you've heard that you should prioritize job security over passion. This is another piece of advice that was drilled in my head that's deeply ingrained in our culture. The belief is that a 9-to-5 job with a steady paycheck and benefits is the safest path to financial success. But is it really? The truth is, job stability in the traditional sense is not what it used to be. Layoffs, company restructures, economic downturns, these things can hit everybody, yes, including myself, regardless of how stable your job actually seems. A report by the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that the average tenure at a job is just 4.1 years, and that number is even lower for younger workers. This means that even in so-called stable jobs, you might find yourself needing to pivot more often than you think. And let's not forget about job satisfaction here too. Working in a job that you're not passionate about can lead to burnout really quickly and a lack of motivation, which can negatively impact your performance and long-term career growth. A study found that only 33% of workers in the US are engaged in their jobs. Now, let's take a step back here and think about why this advice might have worked out for our parents or our grandparents or your guardians, but doesn't necessarily apply to our generation. So, for our parents or our guardians' generation, staying at one company for decades often led to promotions, pensions, and a sense of security. But the world has changed, and so has company priorities. Our generation is more focused on living life now, not waiting for some distant retirement to financially enjoy ourselves. We prioritize experiences over a lot of material things, flexibility over strict routines, and passion over just punching in and out of a clock. This shift is reflected in the rise of the gig economy, remote work, and the increasing number of people starting their own businesses. Basically, we're redefining what work means and how it fits into our lives. On the other hand, pursuing a career or job that aligns with your passion, even if it's non-traditional, can often lead to greater fulfillment and success. The gig economy, freelancing, and entrepreneurs are all viable paths that offer flexibility and the potential for multiple income streams. Yes, they come with their own risks, but in today's world, diversifying your income and doing what you love might actually be the more stable choice in the long run. Moving on to another common belief, you need to go to college to get a good job. Oof, how many people here have heard this one? My mom definitely told me that. This one is drilled into us from a young age. Get good grades, go to a good college, and you'll land a great job that sets you up for life. Shout out Erica Price for telling me that same exact thing. If those of you don't know, that's my mother. But let's take a step back and reconsider this one. College can be a fantastic experience and really provide valuable skills, but it's not the only path to a successful career. In fact, the return on investment for college degrees has been declining for years, particularly when you factor in student loan debt. That's a whole other conversation, but it's when you factor in student loan debt that we start seeing this. For starters, the cost of college has skyrocketed in recent years, leading many graduates to start their careers burdened with significant debt and negative net worth. The average student loan debt in the US is about $37,000 per borrower, according to the Federal Reserve, and this number is continuing to rise. For some, it can take decades to pay off, which can delay other financial goals like buying a home, getting married to your partner, or even starting a family. And while certain professions absolutely require a degree, like medicine or law, there are many high-paying, fulfilling careers that actually don't require a college degree. In fact, many tech companies, including giants like Google and Apple, have shifted their hiring focus away from degrees and more towards skills and experiences. Coding boot camps, online certifications, and even self-taught skills can sometimes be even more valuable and faster routes to a successful career than a traditional 4-year career. And I have to say, from an employment standpoint, college degrees are great, but when you have real-world experiences, you're dealing with things on the run, you can implement your skills instead of just learning application and theory in college. It's very different from the employer standpoint. I also want to say college isn't a one-size-fits-all solution here. For some, the time and money spent in college could be better invested elsewhere, like starting a business, learning a trade, or gaining real-world experiences. Take the story, for example, of successful entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, and Elon Musk. And I know these guys are like 0.0001%ers, but I want to mention they all either dropped out of college or didn't follow a traditional path, and yet they built some of the most influential companies in the world. Aside from my mom being college educated, my dad was not college educated, started a small business that is pretty successful now, and a lot of his friends as well too never even went to college or are college dropouts, and here they are very, very successful in their careers. So while college can be important, it's worth considering whether it's the right investment for your specific goals. If you're passionate about something that doesn't require a degree, don't be afraid to try and pursue it, especially if you're in your younger years. Now, let's dive into a topic that can be a bit tricky and awkward for couples. You should combine your finances with your partner. This is one of those pieces of advice that's often handed down with the idea that combining finances is the most practical and trustworthy way to manage money in a relationship. And you've probably heard this if your parents are still together, probably not if they're divorced. The thought process here is that merging everything simplifies budgeting, builds out financial unity, and strengthens the partnership. Because at the end of the day, marriage, yes, is technically a partnership. But is combining finances always the best move? Let's unpack this a bit. First off, let's acknowledge where this advice is coming from. For many of our parents, combining finances made sense because they often had one primary breadwinner, or they saw money management as a shared responsibility that naturally flowed together. The idea was that what's mine is yours and what yours is mine. It was a way to show commitment and trust in a marriage or long-term relationship. Let's also indicate here that it's really only just within the past few decades, women could even open up their own financial accounts without having a male guardian or figure in their life help open it and co-sign for them. So there's that too. But in today's relationships, financial landscapes are very, very much different. We're in an era where both partners are likely to be working to support the household and family, sometimes with very different income levels, financial habits, and even debts. So what happens when you throw all of this together in one pot? Well, it can get pretty messy. Let's talk about why combining finances might not always be the best approach. Money is one of the top sources of stress in relationships, and that is a fact. Nearly 70% of couples who manage money together argue about it. That's a lot of stress, and it's often because one partner feels like they're shouldering more of the financial burden or because they have different spending priorities. For some couples, keeping finances separate or only partially combined can actually help maintain financial independence and reduce that conflict. And I want you to imagine this. You're a saver, your partner is a spender. Hi, I'm the spender. If your money is combined, you might feel anxious every time your partner makes a big purchase, even if it's something that they've saved for. On the other hand, if you have your own separate accounts, you each have the freedom to manage your money in a way that suits you best without stepping on each other's toes and getting in arguments or little tidbits all the time. There's also this issue of protecting your own financial well-being too. And in the event of a breakup or, like I mentioned before, a divorce, untangling combined finances can be very complicated, costly, and potentially damaging both parties and those else who are involved, aka if you have children. But let's not get this confused. Combining finances can really work well for some couples. It's about communication and finding a system that works for both of you. So, for example, some couples opt for a yours, mine, and ours approach. This means that you have one joint account for shared expenses like rent, utilities, and groceries, but you also keep separate accounts for your personal spending. This way, you're contributing to the household and shared goals, but you still have the option to spend or save your personal money, quote, quote, if you're just listening to this, as you see fit. Another approach that's gaining popularity is splitting expenses proportionally to income. If one partner earns significantly more than the other, it might make sense for them to contribute a larger percentage to the joint account. This method can help balance out financial responsibility without putting too much strain on the lower earning partner. And if you're in a long-term committed relationship but aren't really married, it might be wise to keep some finances separate to avoid potential complications down the line. So before you take the plunge and merge all of your accounts together, have an honest conversation with yourself, with your partner, discuss your goals, spending habits, and any concerns that you actually might have. And it will probably feel awkward at first, but having these discussions early on can save you so much stress in the future and potentially arguments down the line. All right, this next one is something I know you've all heard before. Credit cards are the devil. It's a financial myth that has been drilled into us for years. We've all heard horror stories, people drowning in so much credit card debt, paying sky-high interest rates. Whew. Struggling to get out from under the mountain of credit card bills. It's no wonder many of us were warned to steer clear of these credit cards altogether. But are credit cards really as evil as they're made out to be? Let's take a closer look. The truth is, credit cards can be a powerful financial tool if used responsibly. Let's start with the benefits. Credit cards offer perks like cashback, rewards, points, and travel benefits that can actually save you money. For example, I recently took a free flight to and from Paris, not by paying for it, but by using points I accumulated through responsible credit card use and having the right credit cards in my wallets for different purposes. Credit cards can also help build up your credit score, which is crucial for major financial decisions like buying a home or taking out a loan. A good credit score can mean the difference between getting a low interest rate on a mortgage or paying thousands of extra dollars in interest over the life of your loan. So, how do you actually build up a good credit score? By using your credit cards wisely, paying off your balances in full every month, keeping your credit utilization low, and making payments on time. But here's where the warning comes in. Credit cards can be dangerous if they're not used properly. My rule of thumb, priceless playbook here, if you can't pay off your balance in full every month, don't use a credit card. If you're organized and responsible, having a few different cards can maximize rewards and benefits, and it could be a really smart financial move. Check out the show notes for my top credit card recommendations if you want those as well. Let's dive into common career myths that have been around for generations. Don't job hop. The old school advice goes something like this. Find a stable job, stick with it for as long as possible, and slowly climb that corporate ladder. The idea was that loyalty to a company would be rewarded with job security, raises, and eventually a very, very comfortable retirement. But does that advice still hold up today? I don't know. In today's job market, staying in one position for too long can actually limit your career growth. Shocking. Beyond just salary increases, job hopping can help you gain diverse experiences, build a broader network, and acquire new skills. This is especially important in fast-moving industries like tech, where the skills you need today might not be the ones in demand tomorrow. By changing jobs strategically, you can stay ahead of the curve, remain relevant in your field, and open doors to new opportunities. And guys, it's not just about the money or the skills. Job hopping can also lead to greater job satisfaction. If you're stuck in a role that doesn't align with your passions or strengths, moving to a new job could reignite your motivation and help you find a career path that truly excites you. But here's the key. Job hopping should be done strategically. You don't want to be seen as unreliable, so it's important to stay at each job long enough to make a meaningful impact and contribution and learn new skills and potentially build up your network a bit. Now, moving on, I want to tackle the last money myth here. Keep cash saved under the mattress. This piece of advice comes from a time when people didn't always trust banks, and keeping cash at home seemed like a very, very safe option. But in 2024 and beyond, this strategy could actually hurt you in the long run. Let's start with the basics. When you keep cash at home, you're not earning any interest on that money. In fact, with inflation averaging around 2 to 3% per year, the value of your cash is actually decreasing over time. Wah, wah, wah. This means that the money you stash away today will buy less in the future than it does now. So get your spending on. No. So while it might feel secure to have cash on hand, you're actually losing purchasing power by keeping it out of the financial systems. Instead, consider putting your money into a high yield savings account, otherwise known as, or I might refer to it as HYSA, or other interest bearing accounts. Unlike regular savings accounts, which might offer a negligible interest rate, HYSAs typically offer rates that are several times higher, allowing your money to grow even if it's sitting in the bank. It's a low risk way to ensure that your savings are at least keeping up with the pace of inflation, if not outpacing it. If you want my top high yield savings accounts recommendations, just check out the show notes, pricelesstay.com/14. But why stop there? If you're comfortable with a bit more risk, investing your money too can provide even greater returns. For example, over the past 30 years, the average annual return on the S&P 500 has been around 10%. This is a far cry from what you'd get by keeping your cash under a mattress or even in a regular savings account. And that's a wrap for today's episode. I hope we helped you see that some of this financial advice we've all grown up hearing, whether it's from our parents, our guardians, our grandparents, older brothers, siblings, whatever it is, whether it's how you manage your career, use your credit cards, or handle your savings, the key is to adapt these old school ideas to today's financial landscape. Until next time,